30 seconds and counting.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Clutch State Entertainment here. I'm Drew, joined here with our newest member, E, who's going to be joining us to talk a lot of Rockets and Texans. We're excited to have him. If Big E, if you want to give yourself a shout out on any social medias, go ahead.
Hey, thanks, my guy. You already know where to find me, Big E_Houston on Twitter, and that's pretty much it for now. But we could be expanding soon.
Yes, sir. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about all the Texans first-round picks from the 2010s. As you know, the Texans haven't really had many first-round picks in the past couple, 2 to 3 years, because of some moves from the past organization, from the Laramie Tunsil trip from Bill O'Brien. So we figured now the Texans have 2 first-round picks for the next 3 years. It's crazy that we're actually able to say that. We're going to be talking about each one that we had. We're just going to be rating each player, talking about them, how they did, how we feel about them. And so we're just going to get started here with Kareem Jackson, who was picked in the 2010 draft. He played cornerback and a little bit of safety for us. He was picked in the first round at pick 20. So, Big E, if you want to give your thoughts on Kareem Jackson, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the first year I started getting into the Texans was 2012, and that was pretty much when Kareem Jackson was starting to become Kareem Jackson, the player that we knew at the time. So, I have a small soft spot for him, but I really don't like how it ended with Bill O'Brien and just the whole drama that happened around it. But personally, I think I'd maybe put him in this tier right here. And the good pick, I could see an argument for a great pick, but also I could see an argument to why he never worked out with us. He's been pretty impressive if you want to look into his stats. He has the second most interceptions in franchise history. He has the second most pick sixes in franchise history with 3. And just he's been all around solid for us.
Yes, I mean, we're going to put him in that good pick area of all these players. And not only was he a good player, he was a great player for the community. Lots of people loved him, definitely a fan favorite. He did a lot of work for the people of Houston. So I was definitely sad when he eventually did sign with the Broncos. I know that ended kind of rough with the Bill O'Brien era. Bill O'Brien sometimes wouldn't even contact the players that they weren't going to re-sign him when some players were expecting contract extensions, and Kareem Jackson was one of those. So, yeah, Kareem Jackson, overall, great player. Had some really, really big plays. He had a couple of pick sixes that were really, really exciting for me at the time. I was just a young kid watching him. But, yeah, great player that we had in Kareem Jackson. And the next player really does not get bigger than this. In 2011, with the first pick, in the first round, with pick 11, the Texans drafted J.J. Watt. Boos rained out at the Texans draft party. Fans were not happy when we drafted J.J. Watt, but certainly he proved everybody wrong. In 2012, his second year in the NFL, he had 20.5 sacks. 2014, he had also 20.5 sacks. He had multiple 15-sack seasons. He had multiple Defensive Player of the Year nominees and awards. Overall, great player. Walter Payton Man of the Year award as well. Just like Kareem Jackson, he was a great player, but even better for the community. J.J. Watt is a Houston legend on and off the field, and definitely one of my favorite football players of all time. J.J. Watt is an absolute legend.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say he's probably the best player in Texans franchise history. And if you go back to the Kareem Jackson draft, you could look at players we missed. But you can go to the J.J. Watt draft in 2011, and I genuinely don't think we missed anyone else. J.J. was the perfect pick for us. He leads the franchise in total sacks. He leads the franchise in total forced fumbles. He made the 2010 NFL All-Decade team. I think he's probably the best player in Texans franchise history.
Exactly, and I can't wait for that day that, when he retires, he's going to retire as a Texan sooner or later. He's going to, get his number retired. Maybe he'll even get a statue outside the Texans saying something like that. He deserves all the recognition in the world. And our next player coming up is someone who just recently retired, With in the first round in 2012 with the 26th pick, the Texans selected Whitney Mercilus from Illinois. Whitney was a really, really good player. I think that he was just severely underrated. He played on a very, very good Texans defense at the time. I think they were ranked number one in the NFL a couple of times. Obviously, he was pretty much JJ Watt's partner in crime. His best season was in 2015 where he had 12 sacks. His rookie year he had 6 sacks, which is pretty impressive. So yeah, Whitney Mercilus, and even like Kareem Jackson, JJ Watt, all these guys were also just great people for the community. They did so much for the team and off the field as well. So it's just really cool that these, guys, they deserve more recognition and they really did a lot for the team and the city.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to look at it as well for total franchise records, you got Whitney Mercilus is second in sacks. So if JJ wasn't there, he'd be leading the franchise in sacks. Just an all-around underrated all-time player for us. I think it's just because he recently retired and just there was not enough impact after a while when he stayed with us. We had 2 seasons ago where our team just couldn't tackle for some reason. The whole season tackling was an issue. So I feel like he caught a lot of the slander there. But end of the day, I feel like he's probably been a great pick. We could even maybe put him up in the elite, but I just don't think he's at the same level as JJ for us to make like that huge leap from great pick to elite pick, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think great pick is just the perfect spot for him because he was so productive, so consistent. He did a lot for the team. And with our next pick, which was in 2013, the Texans selected DeAndre Hopkins with the 27th pick in the NFL draft. DeAndre Hopkins, like JJ Watt, is a Texans legend, Mr. Consistent. He had to deal with so many quarterbacks in his early part of his Texans career before Deshaun Watson. Let's just take a look at his stats here. In 2013, he had 802 yards. 2014, he had 1,200 and 210 receiving yards. 2015, he had 1,521 receiving yards. 2017, he had 13 touchdowns. So yeah, really, really productive. Just the fact that he was able to come over so much adversity and still be wide receiver one, to be a top 5 receiver in the NFL, and then eventually get Deshaun Watson as quarterback. He put amazing numbers with him, 1,000 yards every single year that he played with Deshaun Watson. That duo was just something else that we won't see for a while, unfortunately. DeAndre Hopkins was a fantastic player. The way things ended was obviously rough for the way that we traded him to Arizona for only a second round, fourth round, David Johnson. It was definitely unfortunate to see. Obviously, there was reasons, why that ended, contract disputes. And DeAndre Hopkins knew he was going to get traded when he asked for a lot of money because obviously, at the time, wide receivers contract weren't super big. Now you see guys like Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams getting these big deals. You understand it, but back then, I think that the Texans wanted to keep him at the right price, and they just really weren't able to agree to that. So sad the way things ended, but he was so productive, and I mean, he accounted for so many of those big games and big wins. He was a great player.
I mean, yeah, and you forgot to mention the 2018 season. We had 0 drops for the whole season. He called in 115 catches that were like passes that were catchable. And it's just like insane, as you said, just Mr. Consistent. He's the first Texans jersey I ever owned. And a year later, after I bought the jersey, he got traded. And like since then, I haven't bought a Texans jersey because I'm afraid I'm going to curse it. But I definitely think he has to go up there in the elite pick with JJ. I feel like that might be a bit of a hot take, but I feel like he could be up there. He has an argument to be up there, even though he does not lead the franchise in anything like JJ does. But he's second in franchise total receiving yards, second in franchise total receptions. He's second in franchise touchdowns. It's just Andre Johnson was also that good of a player. Should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer in my opinion. But yeah, like when you look at it, he's just been very consistent, very great, always been in the top 3 wide receiver conversations. Till recently when he had the injury with the Cardinals and just the Cardinals broke down for a bit. But like when you count his Texans year every season, different QB, and he still managed to maintain like top 3 wide receiver quality and stats.
Yeah, I mean, he's an elite player right now in the NFL. He's an elite player for the Texans, so it'd be wrong to put him anywhere else other than at that elite pick slot. And at our next pick, we have Jadeveon Clowney in 2014. He was the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft, which is it's definitely a bittersweet pick. That was an interesting draft that we had there. But Jadeveon Clowney, just look at his stats here. Obviously, he got off to a rough start in his career. You know, he was an insanely talented player, an athletic freak, kind of similar to Trayvon Walker's in the draft right now. I think that's probably the best way to describe him. Someone who also might go number 1 overall. His best seasons where the Texans came in 2017, where he had 9.5 sacks, in 2018, where he had 9 sacks. He was always really a really great run defender. Had some big plays, big moments, big sacks on Andrew Luck. He had that interception versus the Raiders in that wild card game. So Jadeveon Clowney, I think he was. It's hard to say if he was a bust because he was somewhat productive, but the injuries earlier in his career and the way that he got traded, and it definitely was not a good return. So that too. So yeah, just it was definitely a gloomy era for Jadeveon Clowney as a Texan.
Yeah, I think that like what holds him back in this ranking, or when it comes to like looking back at it, is the fact that the Texans missed out on Aaron Donald at pick 13. But realistically, Aaron Donald was probably not going to go number 1 as good as he is right now. At the time, I don't think anyone would have taken Aaron Donald number 1. It's like taking Jermaine Johnson in this year's draft number 1. So it just wouldn't really make sense. But just looking back at it, we could have had Aaron Donald, could have had like much better defensive line with Aaron Donald and JJ Watt, Whitney Mercilus. But I personally, I don't know where to put him between great and good pick. So I'd definitely love to hear your thoughts on this, on like on the tiebreaker, pretty much.
Yeah, this is gonna be kind of a hot take, but I'd say he never worked out. I mean, he was the first overall pick in the NFL draft, insanely talented, had all the potential in the world, and he didn't have a single season where he got over 10 sacks. So, in my opinion, it just didn't work out.
Yeah, I could
And
respect that. I could respect that. Like these rankings aren't final. Probably after we go through it, we might make a few changes or just look at it before we finalize it.
yeah, and speaking of another player that did not work out in 2015, our first round pick was no other than Kevin Johnson, the quarterback from Wake Forest, at pick 16 in the first round. If you want to look at his stats real quick, he doesn't really have many stats because he was not very good. He had 1 interception in his rookie season for the Texans, and that was it. He started 16 games that year. He started 6 the next year. He started 12 in 2017. And then that was pretty much about it for Kevin Johnson, who was definitely a bust, is the best way to describe him.
Yeah, I mean, when you look back at it as well, you had Byron Jones and Marcus Peters in that draft. You could have taken over Kevin Johnson if you wanted a cornerback. So that definitely just probably never worked out for us. Maybe if we drafted Byron Jones, could have been a similar situation, just could have been a situational thing. Because I remember Kevin Johnson was talented heading into the draft. He wasn't like supposed to be this bust type of player. Just bad timing maybe, or just the wrong pick at the wrong time.
Yeah, I mean that's spot on there. I guess you could say, really this is kind of when it starts going downhill a little bit in terms of draft picks, because the next pick is another really, really injury-riddled player in Will Fuller, who was the 21st pick in the first round. I remember he got off to a really rough start. A lot of drops, a lot of injuries. That's kind of what we always kind of talked about, his injury problems. He had a really big drop in that playoff game against the Patriots. Brock Osweiler threw a perfect pass, money in the end zone, but he unfortunately did drop it. His rookie season was actually his third most productive season. He had 635 yards. In 2017, he had 7 touchdowns. It was actually really impressive, but only 423 yards. In 2020, that was kind of his big year for us. But of course, he did have a suspension. But he finished with 879 yards, for 8 touchdowns in only 11 games played. So that was pretty impressive. Obviously, we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes in terms of injuries and what he did with the during that suspension and the time in the offseason, whatever happened there. I don't want to speculate on everything, but could have been using some performance substance. But yeah, Will Fuller, I'd say that he had some really big plays. He was definitely a playmaker, but he just could not stay on the field.
Yeah, I mean, that Thanksgiving game, I think it was against Detroit, where he had 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns. That was just like when I thought he was going to be back, and I was telling everyone, it's Will Fuller's it's back. Take him in your fantasy leagues next season. It's over. But one thing that really doesn't like make me go crazy over this pick is that we barely missed out on anyone around that pick. Like we could have had Jalen Smith, the linebacker who's on the Packers, I think now. I don't know if he left the Cowboys. But when you look at it in hindsight, there wasn't really like a better option, in my opinion, with that pick, which is probably why I'd still put him on never worked out just because of the injuries and the suspension and just the whole drama that happened. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, he really just did not pan out. And we have a special section for this next player, which is Deshaun Watson, who was picked in the first round at the 12th pick in the NFL draft. Of course, we did trade up with him with the Browns, giving them an extra first round pick. Let's look at his stats real quick. In 6 games started, he had 1,700 yards for 19 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Was in consideration for Rookie of the Year. He got some votes for that, even after getting injured. In 2018, he led us to an 11-5 record, throwing for 4,165 yards for 26 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. And 2019, he threw for 26 touchdowns. And 2020, he had those ridiculous numbers of 4,823 yards for 33 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions. And he started every single game. He was a superstar. He was a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. But of course, we all know what happened, and the fall of Deshaun Watson occurred.
Yeah, when you look back at it, we could have had TJ Watt, could have paired them up with JJ, uh, could have had the Watt brothers, maybe even signed Derek at fullback, just had the trio. But just everything the way it happened, what happened with like this whole scenario is just it's probably the most hated man in Houston. Maybe there's that guy the Astros fans hate, Mike Fires. Mike Fires. I don't know his name. I don't watch baseball that much. But I think it's between those two for the most hated man in Houston.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly that. So I have a special category here for Deshaun Watson. And the last player that we're going to be talking about today is Tytus Howard, who is the man that we brought in to protect Deshaun Watson. We drafted him in 2019 with the 23rd overall pick in the draft. And I absolutely love Tytus Howard. I think he has all the potential in the world. If we would just keep him at one position, if you keep him at right tackle, I think Tytus Howard could be a top 10 right tackle. I think that if he just settles down in one position, I think he could even be a great guard. He's got a lot of power, good hands. He's a fantastic run blocker. He did really, really good as a pass protector, especially when he played left tackle. I thought I was really, really impressed by that. He's got a lot of potential. He's still young. He's one of the core pieces, I could really say, of this Texans team right now. And the Texans are really excited about what they have in Tytus right now.
Yeah, it's just like one thing or another with this franchise sometimes, because it's just obvious that you keep him at right tackle or you keep him at tackle in general, and he's very very good. He's a very good O lineman. But when you start playing that game where you put him at guard and then you put him at tackle and guard the tackle, it just drops down. His value drops down, his production and everything. But personally, I think we can easily put him maybe in a great pick, but definitely not below a good pick in my opinion, just because he could be here long term. Him and the Tunsil pairing is something like that's very exciting to think about when we have that protection for Davis Mills and more offensive weapons coming into this season with the two draft picks coming up. Yeah, it's just gonna be very fun to watch the offense next season, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I think for all we know, Tyus Howard turned out to be an elite pick. I think he really does have that potential, at least to be a great pick. You just got to settle down at one position. All right, guys, that's going to be it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to go down in the comment section and welcome Big E to Clutch City Entertainment. We're super happy to have him here, and hope you guys enjoy this video. And if you want us to have any more content like this, put your ideas down below, and we'll be sure to take a look at it. All right, guys, that's it for today. Peace.